empowering African. Yes, lovely. So we are a startup that we want to, work together to empower Africans to look for space-based solutions for like problems in their communities. And one of the ways in which we want to achieve this is by working together with young people, through outreaches. We're very interested in outreach and space awareness and space education. So for the past 3 years, we've been organizing webinar sessions as part of our project in really spreading the word about space. So this is not the first session. We've been doing this for a while. If you check our YouTube pages, you see some of the older videos as far back as 2021 and 2022 as well. So I'm particularly really excited to work with Space Hubs Africa. So I work as promotions managers. I handle like the webinars and the series and stuff like this. So like I said, we've done like other webinars. We've had different focus conversations, international cooperation in space, entrepreneurship, space education, human space flight missions, and very interesting topics all around. But why I'm particularly excited about this webinar is the fact that it's going to be the first one that is not focused on a particular topic. So this is not about education or cooperation or entrepreneurship, but it's really holistic in the sense that we cover a wide area of like different topics. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what our speakers are going to have for us today. Yes, a little bit about myself for those of you that may not know me and you're just joining the session. My name is Nelly Brooker and I'm a lawyer. I'm a public speaker in the space sector and I'm a postgraduate student. I'm currently doing my master's in international relations. So I have like over half a decade of experience working in the space sector, particularly around promotions, awareness, outreach, space education, stuff like that. I really love like organizing events and bringing people together. So you would most likely always see me on the screen speaking and doing stuff like that, or in a conference somewhere running around the place. So I really love like bringing people together. That's why I love working with Space Hubs Africa. They give me this opportunity to bring people together like this, for us to have conversations about space. And finally, about today, about our dialogue. As you can see, we have like a wide range of participants from like different parts of the continent, which I find really interesting. We literally have like from East Africa, from West Africa, and I think from South Africa as well. Do we have anybody from East Africa yet? Okay, I'm not sure. Zimbabwe. Where's Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe is in South Africa, right? Zimbabwe is in South Africa. Okay, great. Okay, yes, we have people from like different parts of the continent, and we have basically 7 space societies. So not all of them are like space clubs, but most of them are like clubs located in university. But I think Astro-Sirius is not really like located in a university, but has to do with like a geographical location. So it's more broad. And I'm really glad to have all of you here. Thank you, David. Yes, East Africa right here. I'm glad to see you here. And thanks for everybody who just joined the conversation. We are starting very early because we have a long day ahead of us. So just a brief slide here about like some of the people speaking. We don't have pictures of everybody speaking, but we have Sean from SEDS Zimbabwe, and we have Habib from LASU, the founder of LASU Space Club. And the full details of these clubs, like what they do, their activities and everything, can be found on the events webpage. Richard, if you could just help me post the link to the events webpage. Yes, so everybody can see the details. And if you're called to speak about maybe your school or you ask a question, please feel free to talk about your school and your club and what you do, just as a way of also introducing your organization. Okay, so that will be all for now. So I'm not going to share my screen anymore. So thank you for listening to that brief introduction. So right about now, we are going to go straight to the dialogue and we are going to start our conversation. And I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me clearly and everybody's mic and everybody's ready. I can see Keketso, I can see Habib, and I can see Sean as well. Well, I'd like to know if all the universities are here and everybody's adequately represented. Who is representing Obafemi Awolowo University, please? Are they here? Obafemi Awolowo University.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm representing Obafemi University. My name is Bukola Dolabomi.
All right, Paula. All right, thank you. Nice that you are here. And who's representing FUTA as well? I'm just calling for like the schools that I've not really noticed their presence. FUTA.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your name is.
Yeah. I'm Oladejo Olaskomi from FUTA, representative from FUTA, and also I'm privileged to be the current serving president of Space Club FUTA. Yeah, and I'm glad
All right.
to be engaged in this conversation, in this dialogue.
Okay. Nice, great. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. And how about the University of Nigeria, Space Club UNN?
Okay, good day, Space South Africa. I am Okike Osisi Ogubanabas Joshua. I will be speaking on behalf of the University of Nigeria. My co-speaker is not yet on the Zoom call, but he will be joining.
All right, that's fine. Honestly, they can join us much later. And I see Blue Current Space, so I see Zimbabwe as well. Prudence, I see on the call representing Astro-Club Benin. I just want to make sure Prudence is still on the call.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, great. And yeah, I think Habib is here for that. So okay, great. Thanks for that.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me loud and clear?
Yeah.
So I'm Keke Tsukumani, speaking on behalf of Blue Crane Space from South Africa. I'm the executive chairperson for the society, and it's a pleasure to be engaging with such brilliant minds from around Africa on this insightful discussion today.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Keke. So it's really nice to have you here, and I'm really inspired by what you guys are doing in Blue Crane Space. And because of the discussion, hopefully we get to hear more about what your organization is about. So just to really start this conversation, some housekeeping rules. We're going to be having a very community dialogue. So we want to keep it respectful, want to keep it great. Just communicate with each other. If you don't, agree with the points, you can just really point that out in a very polite and nice way, just to keep this really interesting. And for those of us that are in the audience that are not part of the initial panel session or dialogue right now, please don't feel left out. You are absolutely free to send your input on the chat box, and you are also free to raise your hands. It really depends, and we might actually want to hear from you as well. But towards the end of the conversation, we'll give a chance for everybody to speak. So really, I'm just going to start with Blue Crane Space because right now, I don't know how it is, but I'm directly looking at Keke since this video is on. So I would want to start off with space education. And the reason I'm starting with space education is because while I was organizing this webinar, I noticed a lot of people were asking me so many questions because we're not really seeing the points of us talking about space in Africa. So it might be a problem linked to maybe awareness or education. So in what ways do you think space education initiatives, particularly research in Africa, can inspire the next generation of scientists and entrepreneurs? And what are you doing in your organization to contribute to space education? Can you hear me, Kagetsu?
Can I continue speaking?
Yes, of course. I think this the network kind of glitched for a moment, so I couldn't hear you.
All right. With Blue Crane Space, we do have an outreach department that was established over the course of the December holidays that is headed up by one of the society's co-founders, which is Wayne Swanepoel. So we intend to actually visit high schools in underprivileged areas to have outreach in forging career paths within the STEM fraternity. So that is inspiring high school students to actually pursue studying science at science-related courses at university to increase the output of scientists, engineers, and people with a propensity for the STEM fraternity. And then within the society itself, in terms of space education and outreach, we do participate in continental initiatives, namely the Pan-African Citizen Science Lab since April 2023, in which we participate in a project called the International Astronomical Search Collaboration, which is a NASA-partnered initiative. And we have participated in those asteroid search campaigns 6 times now, if I'm not mistaken. So that is an opportunity for our members to actually find themselves having hands-on experience with space science projects whilst carrying out their studies at the University of Pretoria. So the main purpose of the society is to make sure that we foster an interest in the STEM area of education for our members, and basically become a hub for science lovers at the University of Pretoria. That really aligns with the mission and vision of the society as a whole.
Great, thank you so much, Keke. So beyond your work, the amazing work you guys do at BCS, I think what I would really want to know is, the wider impact of space education and outreach initiatives in Africa. In the sense that some time ago, someone had really let me know that space awareness and it's really great. Space education is really great when you talk about capacity building. But then if we don't have the institutional and infrastructural frameworks, where are these people going to work? You're inspiring the young generation to have interest in STEM rather, in order to do what and work where. And those are the kind of questions that people would generally ask, especially when it comes to space. And how would you react to something like that?
Well, you do raise an important issue that there is quite a lack of capacity when it comes to STEM absorbing the majority of graduates in STEM and the future generations that we are inspiring.
Okay.
For example, one space agency that I found to be helping to develop that capacity is the South African National Space Agency. They do have a department that does absorb graduates in the field of study that I find myself in, which is geoinformatics. So geoinformatics encompasses the study of geographical information systems, remote sensing, and cartography, which is the science of map making. So with such a field, you are able to branch into space science and work.
Yeah. So basically, you may be trying to say that I'm not I would not want to misquote or misunderstand. I don't want people on the call to do that. But it really depends on the field and what field of space you're interested in. There might be opportunities in some areas more than others.
That is true. That is true.
Probably part of the reality that people need to know when it comes to space in Africa. Some sectors are more developed than others. So talking about sectors, I'll come back to you, Keke. So I would like to hear from University of Nigeria. I don't know, Barnabas, are you right on the call? Barnabas, are you on the call, or anybody representing UNN? Okay, we don't have anybody from. I think Barnabas is on the call. I can see him on the call, but I don't know if for some reason he cannot hear me. Can everybody hear me loud and clear, by the way?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, then it's a UNN team. All right. So probably when we have them, come back to them. So I'm just going to go to LASU. And yeah, so we're just talking about me and Keketo. We're just talking about like education and inspiring young people to be interested in space. But then there's a possibility that there's really no access, to real life opportunities, for them, which can be a problem. But I may be wrong. And let's say we have somebody interested in human space flight mission, right? Let's say I want to be an astronaut, which is like they're one of the like most obvious things that's been like interesting and inspiring for younger people. So what are your thoughts on human spaceflight missions in Africa, before the end of the decade?
Okay, good day everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me. So it's so nice to be part of the session. Yeah, so talking about human space flight in Africa, even in this decade, in the next 10 years, so I feel it's something that a lot of young people would really love to see, and it's an ambitious thought. But when we look at the reality, I feel what is most realistic is that space flight mission in Africa might not come to pass in the next 10 years. Because we have to look at quite a lot of things, a lot of constraints and challenges that we are facing in Africa as a continent generally, and in the area of space education and space sector. So we look at issue of funding, issue of the technologies, and issue of private sectors who would like to invest in that area. So for example, if you look at the area of funding, Africa, for example, is a poor continent like we know it, and many countries are not looking at investing in the area of human space flight. So maybe for now they are trying to invest more in launching of satellites and Earth observation and all of that. But looking at human space flight is actually going to consume a lot of resources. And looking at
so basically you're saying it's not worth it, and like
I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I'm saying it doesn't look realistic.
Yeah, to believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying it doesn't look realistic. And when we look at, for people who are interested in what's it called, in the space sector as youth, I feel like we can always maybe look for opportunities outside if possible, and maybe within the continent itself, still work more on education. Education is still very important. And looking at for people who are within the policy sector itself, can work on building more policies and creating environments that would enable more investment in the area of space.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Does anybody want to give another point to that? Especially because I know human space flight is quite like, it's really like motivational, and it's something that we all look forward to. Like every space enthusiast, 1 out of 3 space enthusiasts would take one-way trip to Mars or to the moon. So it's quite sensitive when we talk about human space flight with such pessimism in Africa. So I don't know if anybody has something else to say about that before we go to the next topic. So
sorry, yeah, my hand was up. I raised my hand.
Sure, Senat, please feel free, go ahead.
Hello, hi. So yeah, I would like to say that. Oh, did I introduce myself?
No, first? Like after like the family meeting, you're just saying.
Okay. So talking on the point that the last person just made, I'm so sorry, I don't know your name, but I think we understand that it's not realistic, okay? But then if we think about that, we have to be honest that we are only, if we're talking more about like educating our youth and whatever, then we have to be honest to ourselves that we're only educating them and empowering them to help other nations and not to help our own nations. Because the question that Nelly initially asked was, what are we teaching them and what are we teaching them for, or something like that, something along those lines. So it's like, and who are we teaching them for? Like, we're literally giving this, like, the amount of capital or the amount of effort and resources that we put, as little as it may seem compared to like other more developed countries, the amount that we put into our youth is being exhausted elsewhere. that is not within our own countries. So if we're going to be realistic, then we have to also admit that we're not raising anybody to build anything here, to be very honest. So
okay, oh wow, that's deep. So because I sense the brain drain argument coming on, but that's going to be a very long topic. But thanks for that contribution. Thanks for that contribution. I think when it comes to human space flight, I would prefer a flexible approach. Neither here nor there, indifferent. Do we need it? Do we not need it? I'll take maybe one or two more inputs before we talk about, we have a lot to talk about today. So I think Dr. Guje's hand was up. Dr. Guje, please. I think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Hello, Nelly. And
Yeah.
hello, Africa. It's nice to see you again, Nelly.
Yes.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for what you're doing for Africa. It's a reality in my time, and it's possible. To your last speaker, I think too often we don't understand what reality means. Reality is not a single spectrum. People have to come together to create the reality you see. And it's the same thing that affects every process. US did not start building space today. Over 10,000 people have put in hand and knowledge over time. The guy that started the space idea is not alive today to see it in real time. But generations after created that reality. But it started from one person. So I understand that he may think it's not a reality. It is. The problem now is that how do we get it done? It may require us not being the Nigerian that will send someone to space. It may require all of the continents working together with our space-based engineer to send one person, a young person who is likely 18 years old, pick 18 years old from all over the continent that are interested in going to space and start training them. Of course, you pick only one or two at the end of the day, but things can happen along the line. These are how the US does it. Angola has a plan to send people to space in the next 7 years, and they are working hand in hand with South Africa. How do I know? The DG, you understand, was one of the participants who came in 2019. You understand, Nogon. He's now the DG of Angola, and I hope to connect you all to the program. So your last presenter, I think, is Hosanet. Hosanet made the point that yes, it may appear it's not a reality, you understand, but the truth of the matter is that if we must take space very serious, we must go beyond just empowering people and educating people. We must actually be implementing things to make things happen. We must strengthen other components of space-based stuff, information gathering, testing out the equipment, manufacturing the equipment. Nigeria can manufacture all the equipment. South Africa can bring the brains behind, the sensors that can keep it in space. Everything will there. And then at the end of the day, we send a Mozambican, to space to go and join them. That's how reality is built. It's not built around your country. It has to be
a very Pan-African approach from what you're saying. It has to be a Pan-African approach. The countries have to be willing to sacrifice resources for sending somebody that may not be their citizen. It has to be a Pan-African approach. That's what I'm really getting from you. Like, for us to work together, everybody work together to see how we can make this happen. This is so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing. And, the tip you just gave us, that insight there, really great. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Guje. So on account of time, we can't take oral contributions on human space flight, but please feel free to drop your message. And then maybe towards the end of the meeting, we can pick it up again. We have other, things to discuss and to learn, because I feel like we are really learning here. And I'm just quickly going to go to the perception, because I think perception is very important when we spoke about reality, what reality is and what is, especially in space, is really important. So I'm going to go to Zimbabwe, and Sean, if you're there, I want you to maybe tell us a bit about what is this perception of Zimbabwe's venture into space? How is it perceived by the wider Zimbabwean community? Because I understand there have been a lot of economic issues. Of course, every country has economic issues, but particularly Zimbabwe has, faced lots of economic downtime, and yet Zimbabwe is still talking about space. And you guys are students for the exploration of space in Zimbabwe. It must be probably, I'm not sure, hard on you guys, but let's hear your first-hand experience on that.
So generally because of the state of things, when you want to do something as highly advanced and technological as space exploration, you're generally seen as idealists. Is that practicality question comes into play again. So people think that they should more focus in more like practical things, more basic needs, and space should be left for other continents. But I guess with collaborations between universities, like my university specifically, Midland State, and the Zimbabwe National Geospatial and Space Agency, and also the Meteorological Services of Zimbabwe, we have been trying to raise awareness and do activities that make us appear more practical rather than people with just ideas. There was a launch of high altitude balloon which went for up more than 20 kilometers from the ground. So when people see things like that, they tend to change their perception from, oh, these guys are just idealists, they're just sitting and discussing things, but they're actually doing things. So that's how we've been changing people's mindsets towards this and saying, we can actually do this and we can solve problems. Like recently, Starlink applied to operate in Zimbabwe. And we've been having so many connectivity problems with our internet and stuff. So Starlink coming and using its constellation of satellites to improve our internet capabilities, our network capabilities, we can actually show people by collaborating with them that space is a need, and the perception that is not a priority right now, it should be done away with, I think, very soon.
Yeah, wow, this is lovely. It's very great, the approach that you guys are taking, just trying to be more practical and not just talk about it to show that you can actually make like contributions to the Zimbabwe economy through space. And thank you for sharing that with us. And since we're talking about perceptions, I want to go over to like FUTA, and I don't know if the person representing FUTA is there. And there is this common perception going right now in the space sector. I'm sure Dr. BJ will be very familiar with what I'm talking about with regards to security as concerns like major spacefaring countries, particularly USA, Russia, China, and other countries also have counter. Sorry, I'm just getting some messages from Richard. Okay, all right. Thank you for that notice, Richard. So I want to really know from FUTA University with regards to space security issues. So in Africa, we have our priorities. Some of the speakers have been talking about what our priorities are, like Earth observation and space education, but we hardly talk about space security and counter space capabilities. We are just focusing on the peaceful use of space. But what are your thoughts on this, being that we lack, capacity in ASAT weapons in the near future? Do you think this would, jeopardize Africa's position or Africa's aspiring position as a space power? Because we are not exactly there yet, but our aspiring position. Would you like to comment on that? And yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So concerning the African space security, yeah, that should also be prioritized because there's no essence in like working towards improving the space infrastructure and space program in Africa. And let me say the practical aspects of maybe launching satellites, having your own space like ISA, having a room in the ISS rather, something like that. But it's very important to work on the security aspects. We must protect our space from intruders. There should be security. Let's take, for instance, all these world powers, they fight themselves more in space. In terms of launching weapons through space. So after working all through this on our space, and there's no miss no appropriate plan on how this will be secured, so that any nation any continent can not just rise up against it and fight us. So it's very much more important to prioritize space security and the peaceful use of space.
At the same time, wow, like how does that exactly work? Does anybody want to, make an input on, the issue of space weaponization, space securities, and Africa's position?
Okay. Ideally, following the Outer Space Treaty, space is meant to be used for only peaceful purposes. But then when you consider the reality of how things are and the unstable nature of geopolitics globally, you see the need for Africa to develop its space, that's military use of space capabilities. Reason being that we never can tell when a serious war is going to hit us, and if we are not ready to face it up, then it's going to be a big problem.
That's a very I don't know. It's a very in IR, from an IR perspective, it's a very realist, approach to look at it, that there can just be a serious space war, and Africa should probably have space counter space capabilities. But anyways, I'm ready to take, one more position on that. Yeah. Does anybody think otherwise, that we may not really need to focus on that? We have other problems and other priorities, and yes, and space warfare might not be imminent, and we should just really focus on peaceful use of space, for development, and not talk about.
Sorry for the interruption. Let's take for instance now, this country, Mali's, Burkina Faso, Niger. Like there was more, even though because things were called other African ECOWAS nation, like come from this Western Africa. In that manner now, let's say there is a war, and each country in Africa doesn't work towards the security of their space. It will really backfire. And what those guys intend to do is that they want to form alliance with Russia and like, fine, we know that US, Russia, they are still dragging this world power, China and the likes. So everything will still backfire back on such country in Africa. So one of the reasons why we also need to prioritize our space security.
Yeah, okay. I get. Dr. Buje, you want to contribute, because space security is really not fast, and it's really yes. So let's hear from Dr. Buje, and then who else hand is up as well?
Yes. Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you for all these wonderful questions you're asking. Now, the question you're asking our viewer is very clear. One, in light of the fact that Africa has growing insecurity problem that has spanned decades, every one of us have heard of Liberia War, Sierra Leone War. These things are endless. What people fail to understand is that before these wars happen, there's proper mobilization. People know that people are moving around a lot. Most of the security personnel may not know. Let's come down to our own terrorism. Somebody took 350 women 11 years ago. Until now, we can't see any of them. But with space-based technology, you can do more surveillance. You can be able to pinpoint in real time and space what truly happened. Not all the dramas that we have. Some people believe those girls were never kidnapped. Some people believe that they were kidnapped, but the government failed. The point I want all of us to learn is this: when we stay away from science, evidence-based, factual-based, we will never be able to create data and information that are needed to create the policies that will drive development. Space-based technology creates that evidence-based, factual-based, because in real time, you can observe somebody killing elephants, poaching on elephants. You want to stop people poaching on your elephants and killing your giraffes so that you can increase funding, external funding, or dollars can come in when tourism or when people traveling to come and see these animals coming. You make more money there. How are you going to prevent the poacher if you don't observe and monitor? So I think the problem we're having as young Africans, we are not seeing where this space-based technology can be applicable to ensuring that our growth pattern in the area of interest we want can expand. We need security. You can't get security without getting space-based information, observing people, monitoring routes. Even space-based technology can monitor the amount of metal anywhere on Earth. You can pinpoint in real time and say, why are these metals gathering in this area that has been known for violence? Security people, can you go there and find out? You must stop violence before it happens and stop being statistics. So I want us all to shift our mind that space-based technology is the future. Why do you think Elon Musk is moving into space-based technology? Because they know that the processes that create this thing inspire ideas. You need to get it. So what I think we should be doing and what I think we should be guided is, we have agreed that we have insecurity problem. We have agreed that we have educational problem. We have agreed that we have health-based problem. Are there ways the advanced processes used to create this space? Can we tap into any of the processes that have led into geospatial information, sensor collection, sensor guidance, orbital projection of space? It can even help you improve on your defense system against terrorists. So you must realize, just like Hazanet said, that you cannot be grooming your best brains. You cannot be grooming your best brains for other people to advance, protect themselves, become world power, affect the economy, your own economy, because dollar controls everything. Yeah. You understand? It just can't work that way. The best way is to stay on the table with them, drag that space stuff with them, and plead with them that we are ready for coalition and partnership, or else you will always be beggarly for the rest of your life. And I'm not going to be like that. I don't want to be like that. And I think many of you do not want to do that. So if we think that way, we have research backing us on that way, we'll move forward. Thank you so much. Wonderful question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barnabas, too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've been trying to raise my hand, but I don't know. I've been unable to raise my hand.
Still on space security.
Yes,
so
exactly.
What Dr. Buje just addressed here was space for security. Using space-based technology
for security. Yes, exactly.
Security. Yeah, and I was earlier referring to like militarization and weaponization. So I understand. I didn't make myself quite clear enough. But the inputs he just made is very instructive to like a conversation I would have brought. So he has covered that for us and how we can use space for security. So I just quickly have to go to OAU and then I'll come back again to you, Habib. So just hang on there for me. That's all right, because I think we've not heard from OAU and I would like to hear from OAU. And Dr. Buje was just talking about, partnership, collaboration, and it really brought my mind to the issue of space sustainability. And space sustainability is a recurring theme now in the space sector. Every single conference you go, almost every panel has a work here. Every event has a working group on space sustainability, and everybody's talking about space sustainability. What do you think should be the African approach to this? What are probably how Africa should approach the issue of space sustainability, mitigation of space debris, and the surrounding topics around that, if OAU wants to quickly step in?
Okay, thank you. So concerning sustainability and debris in particular, I know majority of the solutions or answers to these questions are centered around the technology we should use, maybe couples and things like that. But then I want to see it from a question of why should Africa try to solve this debris problem? Because most of the debris in space or issues like that, I know they affect climate change. Who caused them? And you probably find zero African influence in these things. So why are we trying to clear the debt another person has caused? And I think this has an intersection with what people have been saying since the conversation started: education, brain drain, and all. I would have loved to expatiate on that, but to cut the long story short, we can assist with our bright minds, in which they cannot deny, by giving them labor. I mean, giving them human capital that can actually help out with clearing this space debris, right? But we being the one to fund heavy technologies and things like that to clear what they started is a no-no for me, right? So in the process of trying to help them out by providing human capital, we are also indirectly building a force, right? A base to come back home and help out
just,
our own space.
I'm very sorry to cut you, but you just said something
Okay.
interesting. You kept referring to human capital as one of the ways we can contribute to sustainability, and I want you to really expand on that. Do we have the human capital? I am not underplaying the expertise, but like in terms of the technological advancement and the size of our industries, does Africa have like human capacity to support space sustainability?
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to say. We do not have the material resource. But when it comes to human capital is majorly divided into like two aspects, right? There's the potential, right, and the physical building. We all know we won't be painting a facade if we are trying to say we have that that physical build-up, but we definitely have the potentials, right? We have over 80% of our population being young and excited about innovation and solving problems. They know, and that is the reason why they keep finding a way to bring young Africans to their place. We could make this, and that's why I said we are not in the position based on cause and effect, and also based on the available resources, considering that we still have issues like poverty to solve that are necessities, right? We do not have that capacity, or we're not in a position to like single-handedly fund or create things that would send Africans to space or help them in clearing the debris. But we can be in a partnership, right? We could be in a collaboration that will provide these bright minds, right, for them to have enough labor, and that's why I use the word human capital.
I think I now understand the context in which
that's what I'm trying to say. Just like you were trying to say, we have been talking about how we could solve issues since morning, and the pessimistic side about it has been, okay, can we do this? Can we do that? The people that go to space will not die there, right? They will come back, and if we are fluid enough or structured enough to bring them back to Africa, we'll probably having a plus to those who can help us, because even if the materials are available and the brain is not available, then everything becomes useless, right?
Yeah. Just to add, when it comes to like space debris mitigation, you don't necessarily need human space flight missions. You know, we have robotic arms and
yes, definitely. I was just being sarcastic when I said in space. I know
I'm terrible with
majority of
getting
things that go in space are automated, right?
I'm terrible with getting sarcasm. So I don't know if Prudence is on the call. Prudence, are you on the call? I think because I just saw that Prudence. Okay, Prudence left. Oh dear. If someone can reach out to Prudence. Okay, so we'll just wait for Prudence. But while waiting for Prudence, just on this same sustainability issue, does anybody have any points to make on space sustainability? Richard, I think you've done a moot competition before where it was about space sustainability and mitigation, debris mitigation. Did you guys look at the African approach at all? Sorry for putting you on the spot, Richard.
Okay. Yes, we did do an international space law competition and space mitigation, but as lawyers, we are more policy based, so we didn't focus on the African approach. However, we focused on like the policy approach, global policy approach. So in an age where a lot of people are sending things into space, satellites, we feel that there is an overarching need to be more stringent in terms of policies regarding space sustainability. You understand, right?
Yeah, this directly is really important to what we are talking about in terms of like when I say an African approach, like Africa's policy approach to sustainability.
Africa's policy approach to space sustainability. Well, that's a bit tricky. If indeed there are approaches, there are like measures being taken, I'm not very sure it's public enough, because these are the kind of things that we should bring to the forefront. These are the kind of issues that we should be highlighting when talking about space activities. So in terms of Africa's policy approach to space sustainability, personally, I would say I have no idea about that, but I do believe that it is time that we start having those ideas about it. That's my
absolutely very important. Thank you. So thanks for that contribution, Richard. And I might be going. I don't know if Prudence is now on the call, but if Prudence is not on the call, I'll be going back to Blue Crane Space if Kekeso is still there, just to like discuss a few things. I feel like I'm missing out on university, but I want to hope that I am not missing out any university. Okay, so Kekeso, if you're still on the call, I just want to make sure that you're there. Are you unmuted? Are you ready to speak?
Ready to speak, Nelly?
Oh, great.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So really, apart from science and technology, right? Apart from development, which is like most of what we focus on in the African space sector, we also talk about developments, science, technology. What possible other what other possible advantage can Africa really gain in venturing into space? This is quite important, especially for the non-space enthusiasts or people that are outside of the space bubble that are here that may be skeptical about this topic. But so are there any other benefits that you think or Blueprint Space might see in Africa, venturing into space?
So with the non-STEM related impact of venturing into space science, we have noticed that it does foster the spirit of cooperation between other fields that are not necessarily under the STEM umbrella. For example, arts, commerce, and law do feature heavily within the development of a thriving space community. So with an example based on Blueprint Space, our executive committee is not just made up of science and engineering students. You'll find that we do have commerce, humanities, and law students as well as part of the leadership structure that we have in the society. So as to show that, yes, we do want to develop a science hub for students at the University of Pretoria and beyond, but you're not necessarily restricted to being a science student to be part of Blueprint Space. And hopefully that should be a vision that should be expanded beyond our space societies and should be implemented by policymakers at a higher level to ensure that it is not just science students that are involved in the development of the space sector in Africa, but also allied fields do contribute to that development.
Yeah, lovely approach. Thank you so much. Foster the spirit of cooperation, interdisciplinary cooperation. That's great. Anybody wants to add to what Kaketsu has pointed out? What are the non-STEM benefits of Africa venturing into space? Apart from development, science, technology, launch, what spin-off of benefits can we probably get from Africa's interest in space? If anybody wants to jump on that. Yeah, Popola, please go ahead.
Hello, am I heard?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, because I think I am not in the physical sciences, so I wanted to add this. So most of the time we see space science from that aspect, and I once heard one professor say the science have pretty nailed it in terms of sciences, and we are waiting for the economics of things to play out. And what he meant in that conversation, or the book he wrote, was that development has interestingly not been limited to planet Earth. And as wild as that might sound, development and well-being can extend to humans being on another planet, right? So while we try to explore or create a means to survive on other planets, nobody's asking or nobody's inquiring about the how we would actually fare, right? It took over, I think, 1,600 years to even have a means of exchange apart from barter. And when we are going to a place where it's not the same resources and things that function on Earth that function there, are we trying to wait till then before we start solving such issues again? It seems very far, but then it's right by our fingertips already. So incorporating other sciences and humanities into these fields, right, is only a very good way of preparing for life outside Earth, if I'm permitted to put it that way.
Of course, absolutely. I think I really appreciate it when I see people in Africa that are in the space sector, but they're interested in interplanetary missions and thinking about the ethnography of space, the sociology of space, our African heritage. What unique identity are we bringing into the space sector as a culture, as a people? So it's quite important. This plays out even in policy as well. You have some people in academia like Dr. Timibia Ganabadat are strong supporters of bringing in, Pan-African ideals and, literature from an African perspective to interplay in international space law. So it's not just about science and technology and development. I really love the approach to see that we can also, through space, project the African identity, economics, or like our own way of seeing things, and not just from science and technology, but from different fields and different approaches. And that was a very important point. I love that. Thank you so much. So I don't know if Prudence is now here, because we have to ask Prudence question, but if Prudence is not here, okay, Prudence is still not here. Prudence is the only person that could have, discussed about, the Francophonie approach, but we just wait if he comes back on the call, and then we can have that conversation. So right about now, I'm going to leave the floor open, and I saw that there were so many hands up, and so many lingering conversations from all the questions so far. So both panelists and non-panelists, please feel free to just let us know if you have. Okay, I see your hand is up, Tade. Thank you. So please go ahead. And after he speaks, someone else just, join in the loop of the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to speak on the last question, which benefits Africa can get from space technology besides just economics. So I'm thinking that investing in space technology will do a lot of good for Africa when you look at it from the cultural perspective. You see, when you look at countries that have gone to space and have invested in space technology, there's sort of like I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Edom Gochukwu Thaddeus. I'm the other representative from UNN.
Okay.
Yes, okay. So moving on, when you see countries that have gone to space, or largely speaking, countries that are advanced in technology, there's a sort of shape that their cultures tend to take. They make more inquiries into scientific veracity, more notions into innovation and exploration. So I'm thinking that if Africa should invest in space technology, there is this possibility of our culture developing there to more of a scientific and verified custom. That is, I'm not saying that the African identity should die. I'm saying that the African identity will evolve to incorporate more of instead of superstitions and whatnot, into a more questionable approach. That's what I think investing in space technology can bring to us.
This is so interesting, and we can just really dwell on this. Because you said superstitions, right? And you should evolve into what? What lenses are we going to use to judge this evolution? What, epistemological reality are we going to say, okay, this is advanced enough? It gets really interesting.
Well, that is a very vital question, and it's very big. It delves into a lot of questions of what is the African identity, what do we mean by superstition, what do we mean by evolution. Well, I don't want to stare into but I'll just make my sense. Of course, in every civilization that is in this world, there are various stages of civilization. Not everybody is at the same level, and everybody has different definitions of what they call civilization to be. But if we are to assume that there's an objective standard, perhaps what is accepted as reasonable in every place, and we have examples of what is accepted as reasonable in every place, then we must be honest with ourselves that Africa at present is not at par with the rest of the world. If it was, then we'll probably not be in this meeting discussing of how to get ourselves there.
We'll probably have this off-webinar conversation, but it's really interesting the point you brought when I mentioned African identity in space. But these are under-researched areas, I feel like, especially those of us that in the non-technical part of the industry can start looking at, what is our African identity in space? Why are we venturing in space? Go very philosophical about it. It is not nonsensical. Those kind of things can actually influence the kind of policies we make and how we actually relate with other people outside the continent in the space sector. So thanks for bringing, this sociological part of the conversation. And we can just remain there because I'm a social scientist, but let's leave that. And let's hear from other people. Yeah, sure. Thanks, Daddy. Habib was going to say something, but he's having issues raising his hand. Then after Habib, we can have Popola, sorry, Dollar. We can have Dollar.
Dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I love the conversation because almost everything is a web, right? They are interconnected. The success of one is the success of the other. But I majorly wanted to speak about the aspect of awareness, right? And a lot of people had issues with the fact that if only one person will eventually fly, like that dream when we're young, okay, if only one person will eventually go to space, then why are we just deceiving these kids or these young ones about space exploration, right? So, and I wanted to say something. If we have discovered the problem in the way we have been oriented or that we have been educated about space generally, and we are taking out awareness, then probably our awareness should not just stop with publicity. It could also be about demystifying misconceptions, right? There are there are better ways to paint it to children or to paint it to young ones, those in secondary schools or those that are coming up, to let them still see that space is fascinating, and it's fascinating, but it's not just all about going outside Earth, right? It's fascinating. You can do great things, right? There are a whole lot of professions that do not fly out,
Interesting.
and people still have ideas that they want to do things that are very related to that. So our awareness could not just stop about telling people that space is great, but we could also try to erase those misconceptions from the African mind.
Misconceptions about what space is. This is really interesting. Very interesting. Probably we should have a full webinar to talk about African identity, misconceptions about space, demystifying space. Very, very interesting. Yeah, thanks for that contribution. So there's a question, someone Twitter drew my attention to a question from Sean. And Sean is saying, in Nigeria, there are satellites capable of surveillance and military communication. So if those kidnappings continue, is it not because the military personnel have the equipment, but not the technical know-how to use them? This is quite tricky, and I don't even know how much I should answer and how much I can't answer, because I was working with the Defense Space Administration of Nigeria before I started my master's. So I was there for a few months, about 10 months, and I know firsthand that we do have military satellites in orbit that are supposed to, aid with in security issues, track problems relating to security, and they are working. DSA is working really hard to, use satellite technology for all of this. But yes, we still have issues with the fact that capacity, actually, just capacity, in the sense that we don't have enough high-end tech. I don't think it's a matter of the personnel not knowing how to use them, because I met and I know lots of really great engineers that are there, but it's a matter of, do they have the tools, the necessary tools, and the necessary materials and whatever to work with, and it all comes down to the issue of money. And you mentioned Nigeria SAT. I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure of Delsat 1 that has been launched. If you can check it online, it's supposed to be a group of a constellation of satellites, but only one of it is a satellite launched into the geostationary orbit. But only one of it has been launched, and the other, part of the constellations has not been worked, so it can't really fully function. I'm not a satellite scientist, so I can't really say all of this in very, clear and precise, technical terms. But if you know much about like how satellite work and the geostationary orbit, you probably get what I'm saying. So the constellation is not complete. The constellation of satellites is not complete because only one has been launched, and funding has not been released, to launch the other 3 satellites. So that is a clear problem for the scientists and engineers working on that project. So those are kind of challenges we really have. So at the end of the day, this whole issue of money is very important. And then of course you say, oh, there's money in Nigeria. There's money in Nigeria, but how is this money being used? We come back again to basic socio-cultural questions that we've been discussing in this meeting. If the money is there, why is this not happening? What is the problem? Why is the seniors not approving the fund? Or why are they not giving enough attention to research? And it's not just about space. It's a whole big Nigerian issue, and we can't just limit it to the space sector. So how we treat other industries just kind of like spills off to how Africa or Nigeria, gets to see the outputs of the space sector. And so we have 3 hands up. And I'll start with Habib because Habib has been itching to say something for a while. And then I'll go to Kayode and then, Space Club FUTA. Please feel free to send messages to the chat box. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I've been able to solve the issue of my, I've been able to raise my hand now. So I like the conversation as regards the need for us to participate in the space sector generally. And I like the fact that you mentioned some of the things that Nigeria have been doing in the area of DELSAT and all of that. So I feel like number one of the things that we need to improve on in Africa generally is the area of capacity, talents. We need more engineers, we need more people who are space scientists, we need more institutions to start taking courses in the area of space science. So if you look at Africa, for example, yesterday I was looking at a few institutions in Nigeria that actually offer courses around space science. Yeah, we have some of them, but they're not wide known. They're not that known to everyone like that. And they're not that. So for an average person who wants to start an undergraduate study, he would probably not think of wanting to study something around space science or because it's not that popular. So not to start talking about going into the space sector fully. I can remember, I can't count how many times people have asked me, what are you doing in this your space stuff? Like I always do whenever you post to space. So I think we need to work more in that area. And I was going to talk about the issue of space security. So I like the fact that Dr. Buje talked about space for security, like how can you space for security. And when we talk about space security itself, we should also look at some things that can affect us as Africans from space itself. We're talking about the debris, talking about our satellites. Our satellites can be affected, can be targeted at any point. We can even have issues with issues with asteroids and all of that. So I feel like it's something that we also need to invest in. An area we also need to invest in to see that we are able to protect our own continent itself. Aside using the space to protect our continent from the ground, to also protect what we have in the space itself. Because if anything happens to some of our satellites, we are definitely going to have a lot of issues, probably communication and all of that. So I feel it's an area that we also need to invest in and work on. And lastly, I would like to talk about the issue of collaborating with other nations and other space agencies across. Okay, I think after that, I'll talk about collaboration within Africa itself. So when we look at collaborating with other countries, other nations, I think we've been doing that over the years. Africa has been doing that. We've been collaborating with countries, and even most of our satellites are being built outside the African nation, and some of them are even managed by outside the African continent. But I feel like we should not just rely on that collaboration. Not just rely on that. Okay, NASA is doing a good work. We have Nigerians that are probably in NASA. We have Nigerians that are probably in SA, of Africans. MC Africans that are probably in ESA and all of that. We should also look at how we can make our own space agencies better. Look at AFSA, for example, Africa Space Agency, for example. We have not really been doing anything spectacular. I don't know if probably it's me that I've not been seeing it.
It's still in developmental stages, right? It's not fully operational. Yes. So that's why don't worry. When AFSA starts, all of us, we are going to know that yes, after AFSA is operational. So just to give AFSA a benefit of the doubt, it's not fully operational yet. They are still working on it. It's not easy to set up a full-blown continental space agency with staff, equipment, and everything.
Exactly.
But great.
And the collaboration within the African continent itself is also very important. So like Dr. Buje said earlier about Angola and South Africa collaborating. I also saw a news sometime last year about Ghana and I think was it Tunisia collaborating about some space activities too. So I feel like we need more collaboration within the African continent. The African continent need to collaborate more to bring up innovations and to create things for the space sector. So that's my point.
Thank you. Great point. Amazing point so far. And yes, I feel like I'm going to try to have a little compilation of some of the thoughts that have been kind of like emphasized in this meeting, and share it with you guys later. Thank you so much. I think Kayode was the next person, so we are going to hear from Kayode. After Kayode, we have Barnabas, then Keketso, then Miss Gloria, who I'm so excited to see joining us today. So yes, Kayode, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I think I'm being heard, right?
Yes.
Yes, so I would like to speak to the area of the negligence that the
Can everybody hear Kayode? I think we lost him. I think we lost Kayode. Sorry, quickly before we go to the discussants again, Prudence is finally here. Prudence, we are so happy to have you here. We've been looking forward to you coming. Can you hear? Can you hear me? And can you speak at the moment so we can talk about your points? Then we go back to the discussants. I think for the discussants we have Barnabas, Gloria, Keketso, and Space Club FUTA. On account of time here, we have about 20 minutes to go, so that's fair. And let's just keep our contributions very brief. Prudence, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. So I'm so happy to finally have you here because you're like the only person representing like someone from a francophone country. So we really wanted to know what that was. Again, the reality is like for francophone countries, that are in the space sector that are really interested in space. How is reality like? Most of the conferences, most of the meetings, even the high-level sessions, and some of them that I've attended, they are all in English, right? So do you see this? Is it a potential barrier to how the industry really works in Africa, or do you guys have your own really viable and strong space French community? Yeah.
So, the first question is, it is very hard. I mean, harder than in other country, especially English country, because first, like everything about technology, science in francophone country, we are not seem to be very interesting. So, if you have chance to live in a country where maybe they are facing a crucial problem like security issue or maybe environmental issue, this is in this kind of country where they decide to start working on kind of space program or just having interest in space like Burkina Faso or Senegal or Cote d'Ivoire recently. So, for example, in the case of my country, Benin, so we don't have any space sector or nor space industry or even space programs at university. So, it is very just we are like a baby stage right now. But this is one reason that led me to create these associations to start outreach sessions with university students because with my assistant we are just more focused on university, because if you are going to more develop any space activity in space sector, it will need for to start with those who have basic knowledge in STEMs and who have more engaged and maybe are on the way to engage in the space sector like a career, for example. So it is only on those people we can relate on to start a professional activity or maybe national strategy, because we need to train people to have skills, develop projects. They're better to start from then, and then we can have like a cascading activities and also programs young students. So that's it. But we are facing a lot of problem as the most of resource we have and about space, for example, and English, it is very complicated to have people interest first. And the second point is the point of generally in Africa, I think you have a lot of people who argue about that. We are not seeing first the value of space or what space can bring directly to us. It is not in your country, but also in mine. So first, when you talk about space to people, yes, there's may seem interest, but first, yes, it is something new, yes, who bring curiosity, but they don't try to understand how it can be very profitable to us as a country or maybe as an individual. So this is the first point. So to talk about the language barrier, for example,
we have been the first country, the first francophone country in Africa to participate to NASA ISC program. It is a silver campaign. So after that, we decide to, because to participate in the training for, in this campaign, first we need to follow training session, but all the resources were in English, so it was very complicated for my team members to understand. I was the only one who was able to understand and explain to them. So after this campaign, we decided to create to translate the resources and create tutorials in French, and then we post on our YouTube channel. So just after that, all of francophone countries who want to participate, like Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, DRC, they use all the research to train the team members. So right now we have, approximately 7 francophone countries who participate each year to IRC program, and they have a lot of, they do have accident detections and the ICT. So it is like the only way we can like bring in this kind of barrier due to language, and also collaborate have that kind of collaboration and relationship between different countries in Francophone Africa, and also English country. Like if you can have a program between Nigeria and French, that is lead us to break the barrier of language, and maybe have like a resource that can be easily used for peoples in both of the countries. So that is the main point.
Wow, that's a very interesting perspective. You guys are completely in a community of your own, like all these challenge, all the resources challenge, and collaboration challenge. Thank you for sharing that perspective from Francophone Africa. I am so glad that you are here to join us in this conversation. So we have just 15 minutes left, and we'll try to take all the hands that are up, and then we'll round up for the day. It's been an interesting conversation. So I think it's Keketso, I'm not sure. Then we'll take Keketso, then we'll take Miss Gloria, Barnabas, then Space Club FUTA. Yeah. Or because of time, if some people can share it as a message, that would be great. Just send a message, that would be great as well, and we can just communicate through the message. Yeah. So Barnabas, yeah, your hand has been up. And I'm not sure if Barnabas can hear me. Okay, so just go to Miss Gloria. Your hand has been up as well. If you want to.
Thank you very much, Miss Nelly. Thank you, wonderful people. This is such an insightful and very exciting conversation to have. Although I didn't join in from the onset, I think I was a bit late. So I would just want to talk about I want to talk about space and look at it from the angle of education. I've listened to some of the speakers, and one of the things that I think that we can also add, or we can begin to consider greatly and highly, is having space education and space awareness through catching them young. What I mean by through catching them young, for the young ones, for us at One Child, One Lens, one thing that we have observed, over the period of time that we delved into the space of technology, is that many people or many children are ignorant of when you talk about space. We all know STEM, we talk about science, talk about tech, talk about math and all of those things, but when it comes to delving into space, it feels like a mystery to the people or to the hearers, including the parents, including teachers, including the citizens generally. And so one thing that we've been able to realize is that educating and catching them young can actually shed light to the various group of demography of people that we want to get their interest. For example, in building consistent or lasting organizational structures, we know that when pressure comes comes downward, upward, there is sustainable growth. So by the time we take space clubs in school, enlightening them about space, fun activities, spurring their creativity and all of that, they go back home, they are talking to their parents about this. Oh, this happened in school today. Do you know that this, the what can be like? They start asking those questions, and their parents, will be like, okay, my kids are getting interested in this. The parents have to start reading up on, space, reading up on this new creativity or new love that their children are beginning to. Before you know it, those that are well connected or in government parastatals, they are beginning to say, okay, what can we do about this? My kids will just let me, so before you know it, all of these angles that we think that is so difficult to build up, you just find out that they are already happening because it's now a need. is no longer something that we talk about from the air, or we look at the news, or we just think it's for the developed nations. No, it becomes a need, because our children, who are the future generation, they are in dire need of this thing. So I'm thinking we should consider that highly. We must, although we have very few hands when you talk about creating space clubs in elementary schools and secondary schools, but we are hoping that as time goes on, the undergraduates, the youth corpers, the young people there, even organizations can begin to sponsor people that can help catch them young in space. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much as well. Like, I just wanted to say elementary space education is such an important point, and I'm just glad that you brought it up, because we love to talk about all these big, really, really big and fancy things, mission, human space flight mission and all of that. But we need to really inspire younger people, because in the next 50, 100 years, if Africa is going to, make the difference that we want to see in the space sector, it will be these younger ones. So elementary space education should not be like left in the corner. It should actually be like a priority. And thanks for sharing your perspective with us. On account of time, honestly, we can't take everybody, but okay, I think Keketsu, your hand is still up. Please just go ahead. Maybe that might be all for the day. Please, can you send your contribution as a message? I think we'll still get it if it's sent as a message. Keketsu, please.
All right. My point is just in addition to what Habibullah was mentioning, that space science courses, they're very scarce. They're not as out there as other courses are really. Prime example, in my case, the course that I'm studying, BSc Geoinformatics, like there's literally three Basotho students, like students from Lesotho, and the fourth one is in postgraduate. So it just goes to show how scarce the space science field is really. So a lot has to be done when it comes to upliftment and outreach. As Gloria has mentioned, we have to start at a grassroots level to make sure that by the time they get to university, it is an interest that is well thriving and alive and can be passed on to future generations. I guess that's all.
I see the connection from what Ms. Gloria was saying and what you just said. Because if we don't plant the seeds earlier enough, there'll be no, interest, and there'll be no interest like when they are like at university level, and we just have this circle of issues with capacity building. Thank you for
that is true.
that out. Thank you so much. We still have hands up. Okay, fine. 2 minutes each, Space Club FUTA, and then Emmanuel Ojuko. 2 minutes each. Just let's okay, thanks for putting your point on the chat. I appreciate that. So Emmanuel, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. What I want to do is just to compliment what one of the participants said regarding the space, the space exploration, regarding the courses for the space stuff. Let's take for instance. What I just wanted to say is that the government still has a lot of way to go regarding the administration of all these courses into our universities. Let's take for instance, because in anything space exploration, one of the key courses or key profession in the space exploration is the aerospace engineering. And let's say for instance, Nigeria now, there's no any universities or any institutions in Nigeria that offers this aerospace engineering besides one that just started, I think this year. So besides that, there are other space related courses that ought to be administered into our universities so that students and space enthusiasts who are interested in space related courses can go for. So our government, and also besides, even if they have administered these courses, there's no resources to fund all these things. Or let's say, like for example, aerospace engineering is a very delicate course. It is a course that it's a very delicate. So there's no the materials, the equipment that can be used to teach all these courses is not available, and government is not funding our universities. So how can we be talking about space exploration when we neglect the foundation? And the foundation is about these courses. It's about learning. It's about knowledge,
Education.
giving the knowledge first. So our government has a long way to go in the issue of administering all these courses into our universities and also funding the learning processes. Because all these aerospace engineering, for instance, it is very expensive to fund as a university. It is because the student will need like spacecrafts and space vehicles to experiment on, to construct, and all these things consumes money. So what I just want to say that is that our government has a lot to do. We have to focus on the foundation first before talking about space exploration. We have to focus on how to impact this knowledge, how to administer all these courses into our universities, then before talking about this exploration.
That's actually a very fair point. To be honest, that's a very important point, because you can't be talking about algebra when you have not finished, studying ABC. But it's very debatable, and somebody might have like a different opinion on the fact that, oh yes, we have enough education, but we need to talk more about hands-on, research, have like real labs for the workers that we have to actually work. So there are very different perspectives, and Ms. Gloria might be like, we can't be talking about universities when we have children in primary school that don't know that Pluto is no longer a planet. So it's very complicated, but I think like the most important thing is that all these perspectives are true, and every approach actually has something to contribute in making the African space program better. And I see some messages on the group chat. Thanks for contributing.
Nelly, just a minute. And for Africa to grow in this sector of space, most countries must have to shift their mind from short-term goal or investment, because this sector it requires number of years dedicated with dedication, consistency, investment all the time before we can grow to that level we are aspiring. So that's my contribution.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Long-term investment. Thank you so much. I think someone just sent a message to the Astronomical Society and how they provide, grants for outreach and, to instill knowledge in children. Thank you. Thanks for that wonderful work you're doing for space education. Very important. And I'll just like to quickly summarize like all the points. Let me know if I miss any points. But in this conversation, we've talked about, I'll just finish from the last one, the need for space education, the foundation, going back to, ensuring that children actually like have proper awareness, like proper space education. We've talked about universities and how government needs to pay more attention to universities. We've talked about our approach to sustainability, and there were like differences when it comes to sustainability, but basically we see that, Africa should be concerned about sustainability because we have we have assets in space, but at the same time, I'm not going to use the word the person used, but the person is like, it's not really like much of our problem. So we should focus on, better issues. We talked about space for security, and the most interesting conversation, we talked about like African identity, our heritage, and what unique contribution we are bringing to this space sector as a people, which was very sociological, very philosophical, and quite interesting as well. And I just want to thank you all for these different perspectives, different ideas. And this meeting has been recorded, and I'll try to make it available as soon as I can in case anybody wants to go through over the conversation, or those that were not able to join us. And before we call it a day, we just have 2 minutes. I would like to hear from the Space Club, so we can have one representative from each Space Club. Just let us know your parting word. What do you want us to go home with from your club's perspective about space in Africa? So in no order, I'll just maybe start with Barnabas. I can see Barnabas here. So from UNN, and then we go to LASU, then we go to OAU. Can take it up from there. So each club, just 1 minute, guys. 30 seconds, even as short as possible. Thank you. Let's hear your parting words. I don't know if Barnabas is having network issues. Who else can I say? Okay, so I can see Habib. Habib, I think you're representing LASU, so maybe just some parting words. That would be great as well. And feel free to, you can send your parting word as a message. That also works really. You don't really have to. You don't have to say much.
Okay, so as a parting word, I would just say that space is good. Space is something that it's worth investing, and it's worth knowing about. So we should continue to create the awareness, and continue to let people say my mic is muted. Okay. So she continue to let people know about the goodness of space itself, and how space technology and space exploration can make life better for us on Earth. So I think that we should all start focusing on that and do more in that area. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And Sean, do you want to talk from SEDS Zimbabwe? I don't know if Sean can hear us. Okay, we'll just go to Prudence. Prudence, can you hear us as well? I think everybody's having issues with their mics being muted. Okay. Okay. Keke, so I think you can see me and I hope you can hear me as well. So if you can give your parting word, that'll be fine. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Honestly, this has been a very insightful conversation.
Yeah.
Multiple interesting viewpoints on how the space science sector is looking in Africa, but I'm glad that I was invited to be part of such a wonderful discussion, and it was a pleasure conversing with the rest of the speakers, and a round of applause to you for being such a wonderful moderator for this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I really want to thank everybody for showing up and for the conversation. It was so interesting. It was really fluid, and I really loved how it went. We're like a big family, and everybody just expressed their views. Thank you so much. So, next month we'll be having another dialogue like this, but it's going to be about Pan-Africanism and the African space sector. So basically, we'll be having experts this time around, and we're going to be talking about, does the whole idea of Pan-Africanism, Ubuntu, and things like that, does it really influence how we do space in Africa? Or is it just politics and science? So it's going to be a bit academic, but also very interesting. So I hope that you'll be able to make it for that webinar. So thanks again for coming, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.